Dear students, welcome to the MOOC course on solid and hazardous waste management. Today in this module, we will be discussing about mechanical, biological treatment of municipal solid waste. Now, increasing population and urbanization has resulted in the generation of huge amount of solid waste. Now, this solid waste are generated from a variety of sources like your residential, commercial, institutional, agricultural and so on. Now, these waste when it is disposed of without any proper management, it creates a lot of environmental and health hazards. So, to avoid these, you should have a proper management plan. Now, the management plan starts with waste generation, collection, then segregation, followed by transfer and transport, then processing, treatment and finally disposed of. Beginning from the waste generation till disposal, you have a number of treatment options or processing options which are available. Now, these, if you look into the composition of the solid waste, the biodegradable fraction of the waste is around 60%. Now, in developing countries or underdeveloped countries, they do not practice these management plan and they just dispose it off into an open area or a landfill. Now, when the waste is disposed as such without any segregation or treatment, the 60% of the biodegradable component enters into the landfill. Now, what happens? This results in the generation of landfill gases. And when you can recover something from these biodegradable material, I mean some valuable products, why to dump it in an open landfill? Now, this mechanical biological treatment process helps you in keeping away these biodegradable component from the landfill. Now, this is a generic term which is used for combining or integrating a mechanical and a biological treatment process. With this introduction, now let us look into the learning objectives of this module. Now, the learning objectives of this module will be to understand the concept and the aim of the mechanical biological treatment, in short called as the MBT process. Then we will discuss how this MBT process is actually carried off with a flow chart. Then we will discuss about each of these processes in detail. Then we will discuss what are the outputs that you get at the end of the MBT process. Finally, we will understand or realize the different merits and demerits of the process. Now, as I told you earlier, mechanical or biological treatment process integrates a mechanical process like a material recovery facility and a biological stabilization of organic waste through a composting or anaerobic digestion process. Now, in short, it is composed of two parts. One is your mechanical part in which the waste is mechanically separated, or in terms you can say the recyclables are separated, or it will facilitate in recovering your recyclables like your glass, plastic, paper and so on. The second component, that is the biological part, consists of these any biodegradable material. They can be used or subjected to composting or any other biological treatment like your anaerobic digestion, composting and so on, and you can decrease or degrade the biological fraction or the organic fraction present in the waste. Now, the MBT plant can also be called as BMT, or that is biological mechanical treatment, depending upon the position of biological treatment. Now, the position means if the biological treatment is preceding the mechanical treatment, then you call it as BMT. If the biological treatment is subsequent to the mechanical treatment, then you call it as MBT. Now, there a lot of process can be used in single or in combination in the MBT process. Now, the MBT technology is again, it is widely applied in several regions. Since 1970, you can see a lot of MBT plants are have been installed in many of the developed countries, especially the European countries. United Kingdom focuses more on the MBT process. Now, let us discuss about what are the purposes of a MBT. What is the purpose of creating such a process or designing such a process? Now, MBT has become popular to reduce the biodegradable waste that is disposed of or is going to the landfill. In the introduction itself, I told you the waste consists of a lot of biodegradable material, almost 60%. So, if you are just dumping it off into a landfill or an open area, this undergoes degradation and releases a lot of landfill gases. Now, when you can recover certain products through composting or anaerobic digestion, so why to dump it off in a landfill? So, this MBT process actually was designed or developed to stay or keep away the biodegradable waste from the landfills. The first MBT plant was actually developed to reduce the environmental impact of landfilling the residual waste. Now, these MBT does not replace any management or waste management technologies like your recycling or composting, it just complements. Complements in the sense the performance, this system is developed to increase the performance of the waste management system, not to replace any processing or a treatment process. Now, the typical aims of MBT plant will be 1, to pre-treat the waste that is going to the landfill. Second, to divert the non-degradable and degradable MSW, that is the municipal solid waste that goes into the landfill through mechanical sorting of waste. So, when you do mechanical sorting, the recyclables can be sent to the respective plants to recycle and reuse them, and the other portion can be used for energy recovery in terms of refuse derived fuel. Now, what is refuse derived fuel? I will explain in the coming slides. The other aim would be to divert the biodegradable municipal solid waste that is going to the landfill by 1, reducing the dry mass of biodegradable municipal waste prior to landfilling, and 2, to reduce the biodegradability of the biodegradable municipal waste prior to landfilling. The other aims would be stabilize the waste into a compost like output which can be potentially used for reclamation of land. Then convert the biodegradable fraction into a combustible biogas which can be potentially used for energy recovery. Then to dry the materials so that you can obtain a high calorific organic rich fraction which can be further used in RDF and energy can be recovered. Now, let us discuss about what are the different MBT outputs. Now, MBT outputs means what are the different products or outputs that are generated at the end of the mechanical biological treatment process. Now, the refuse derived fuel which has a very high calorific value due to the presence of paper and the plastic content is one of the main output that is generated from the MBT process. Now, it can be used further in the incineration plant or in some other cement kilns, and you can recover energy or you can use it for as a fuel. The second output that is obtained is stabilized organic waste, in short termed as SOW, which is produced from the biological treatment of the organic fraction of waste. Now, as I told you earlier, they can be used in land reclamation process. The third output is the ferrous and the non-ferrous metals that are potentially separated during mechanical sorting, and you can use it in recycling. Now, other recyclables like your PET bottles, PET plastics that can be sent to recycling. Inert waste that is disposed of in landfill is also one of the output that is generated at the end of MBT process. Now, this flow chart shows the MBT process. Now, if you see, the municipal solid waste that is collected has to be prepared. After preparation, then it will be subjected to segregation. Now, after segregation, here at during the preparation phase you can divert it. I'll tell you, I'll discuss each one in detail. First, after the basic preparation, if you are subjecting it to segregation, then you follow the path 1, and if you are not subjecting it to segregation, you follow the second path. So, after waste preparation, the waste is segregated and then directly subjected to biological treatment. Now, biological treatment again can be anaerobic digestion where biogas is generated, or it can be composting process where compost like output is generated and the digestate is the residue. Now, after this treatment is done, the residue or after mechanical sorting or segregation, the reject that is there will be sent off, and after separation the reject or the recyclables will be sent to the respective plants. If you talk about the path 2, here without any segregation the waste is directly subjected to biological treatment. Now, once again the biological treatment can be bio drying or anaerobic digestion or composting. After this process, once the process is over, the residue that is left out or the compost that is produced will be subjected to segregation. Now, after segregation, the residue is sent to the landfills and the separated recyclable materials will be sent to the respective recycling units for further processing. Now, let us discuss each of the process that is provided in the flow chart in detail. Now, once the waste is collected, I told you, you have to subject it to preparation. Now, the preparation is done prior to the biological treatment and it is done through sorting of materials. Here the bulky waste like your carpets, mattress, then your refrigerators, televisions, etc. will be removed. This removal is done to avoid the downstream processing equipment from being affected. Now, after this the mechanical separation is done. Now, how it is done? First the bags which is containing the refuse is opened, then the material or the waste that is present is shredded and then homogenized into smaller particle size, which is suitable for further separation process. Now, generally what are the techniques that are used for waste preparation is, one is your hammer mill, where the materials are significantly reduced to a smaller size by using a swinging steel hammer. Then comes your shredder, where you have a lot of rotating knives or hooks which keeps rotating at a slow speed with high torque. Due to this high torque, the waste materials are cut or torn off. The third one is your rotating drum material, where due to gravity the waste is tumbles, mixes and homogenizes within the rotating drum. Now, the dense abrasive items which are present in the waste material like glass or metal will help the breaking down of softer materials into smaller size particles. Now, ball mill rotating drum is also used as a technique for preparing your waste. Here you will have heavy balls which will be rotating inside the drums, and during the process of rotation it will pulverize or break the waste. Wet rotating drum with knives are also used for preparing your waste. Here the waste is wetted, then the lumps of waste that is formed will be broken with the knives which is tumbling in the rotating drum. Then again you have a bag splitter. Now, the role of bag splitter is to just break open the plastic bags, not to reduce the size. The next step is waste separation. Now, this is one of the important or common aspect of mechanical biological treatment, and generally the waste separation is done by sorting. Now, sorting helps in separating out the biodegradable and the recyclable fraction from the mixed municipal solid waste. Now, this is done by mechanical means. Now, sorting can be done, as I told you earlier, before biological treatment or after biological treatment, and depending on that they are called as MBT or BMT technique. Now, if you are subjecting the waste directly to the biological treatment, then sorting is not required as a pre-treatment process. Now, always pre-treatment is done so that a stabilized output is obtained and you can dispose it off into the landfill as such. Also, sorting will help you in separating the different waste materials according to the requirement or according to the end use, whether you are going to subject it to recycling or biological treatment or energy recovery through RDF production, or you are going to directly put it in the landfill. So, accordingly different techniques can be used and sorting can be done. Now, the different techniques, how do you choose different techniques for segregating depends upon various properties of waste like your size and shape of waste, density, weight, conductivity and magnetic property of the waste material. Again the techniques, I mean the sorting techniques which I will discuss in the coming slides, You can use it either in single or in combination also. So, this table summarizes the different sorting techniques that are used for segregating the municipal solid waste. Now, first is trommels or screens, which is generally for reducing the size. Here the materials generally targeted are the paper and small plastics, glass, and the key concern of this separation technique is like the cleaning and air containment is a problem. Now, the second sorting technique is manual separation. This is done based on visual examination. Plastic and other oversized contaminants can be easily removed. Here occupational health and safety is a key concern. The other technique which is used is the magnetic separation. This separation occurs based on the magnetic property. Ferrous metals are easily separated, and this is one of the well proven technique. Eddy current separation again uses electrical conductivity as a separation property, and non-ferrous metals are separated. Wet separation technology, again due to differential density, the materials are separated. Here plastics, organics like stones, glass and all will be separated, because out of density heavier materials will sink down and the lighter materials will be on top, and you can separate it out. Now, the problem or the key concern is like at the end of the process wet waste stream is produced. Again air classification is a type of sorting technique. Here the separation is based on weight. Light material like plastics and paper are generally segregated. The key concern is again cleaning, and heavy stones or glass which is there will affect the unit. Then comes your ballistic separation, where the separation property involved is density and elasticity. Again same, it is used for plastic and paper. Lastly, the optical separation technique is also used as a sorting technique, where diffraction is used as a property, and this is for specific polymers which are used in plastics. So, after the waste preparation and waste segregation, then you can subject it to biological treatment. Now, as I told you earlier, biological treatment can be anaerobic digestion or in-vessel aerobic composting, anything or bio drying, anything you can use. So, biological treatment is done either prior to mechanical sorting or after mechanical sorting. Now, they produce a stabilized output called as compost like output is produced at the end of the process, and generally they are safe to be disposed of into the landfill after it is being subjected to a biological process. As I told you earlier, the different options that are used for biological treatment are bio drying, biostabilization, where your partial composting is done for the entire waste and then they are dried. Under the second option which is available is the aerobic process or the in-vessel composting, which is again used to biostabilize the waste or process a segregated organic rich fraction. The third option is your anaerobic digestion, again used to process a segregated organic rich fraction. Now, each of these processes we will discuss in detail. First is bio drying. Now, bio drying of the municipal solid waste is a natural biological treatment. Here the moisture is removed through the process of internal heat that is generally generated during aerobic composting. Now, you know aerobic process, the degradation is much faster and huge amount of heat is being generated. Now, when this heat is there, it will absorb or remove all the moisture that is present in the composting pit or pile. Now, by doing so, when the moisture is removed, obviously your waste material will be dried. Now, in bio drying process, the drying rates can also be augmented with forced aeration also. Generally, bio drying process takes 8 days for drying the waste. Once the waste is dried, then it is easy for you to separate the recyclables, and the bio dried waste can be subjected to refuse derived fuel. Now, refuse derived fuel plants are nothing but it contains incinerators where the dried waste is combusted, and the energy that is released during the combustion process can be potentially trapped and used for heating, or it can be converted into electricity also. The other process which is used as a biological treatment is the anaerobic digestion. Again, it is a natural process which breaks down the organic matter in the absence of oxygen and releases gases like biogas and leaves out a residue, organic residue called as a digestate. Now, biogas, as you all know, it is a mixture of methane, carbon dioxide and water. major fraction is methane gas followed by carbon dioxide. Almost 60% methane is produced and 30 to 35% carbon dioxide is produced. Now, this can be converted into heat or electricity, or you can also convert it into a natural gas substitute and can potentially be used. The digestate that is left at the end of digestion process can be used as a fertilizer to improve the soil health. Now, the anaerobic digestion process takes 12 to 13 days for digesting the waste, and the temperature requirement is 30 to 60 degrees Celsius. The aerobic composting again is a aerobic biological process which is naturally occurring due to the presence of microorganisms which are naturally available in the biodegradable component of the organic matter. Now, this results in the production of humus like product called as your compost. This destroys the pathogens and converts the nitrogen from the unstable ammonia form to stable organic form. It reduces the total volume of waste, and also it improves the quality or nature of the waste at the end of the composting process. Now, there are many different MBT options that are available. As I told you earlier, within MBT the process can be single or it can be used in combination. These are some of the popularly used MBT options all over the world. MBTs with biodrying and SRF. SRF is solid residue fuel. Then MBT with biostabilization is also available, MBT with RDF and AD, MBT with RDF and composting, MBT with anaerobic digestion and recyclate recovery. All these options are available, or such plants are installed throughout the world. Now, one or two examples I will discuss in detail. The first scenario, if you see, the mixed municipal solid waste comes in to the MBT process. Here it is directly subjected to the anaerobic process. One path you can subject it to the anaerobic process, the other one you can subject it to RDF, that is incineration process. So, when anaerobic digestion is done, biogas is generated, you can convert it into electricity and potentially use it as a fuel. Then in incineration, when these waste material is subjected, again it will produce electricity which you can potentially use it, and the residue that is formed, ash that is produced during the incineration process, are further collected and stabilized. Bottom ash is brought as such, and the fly ash is collected, stabilized and then brought to the landfill. So, during the MBT process, the inert waste that is left out, okay, that is again brought to the landfills. Here mechanical sorting is done and then it is subjected to the biological treatment. The second scenario is again the municipal solid waste is segregated or mechanically sorted, then it is subjected to anaerobic digestion. Further, the biogas is explored and one fraction is sent to incineration, and then the fly ash which is collected is stabilized and brought to the landfills, and bottom ash is further collected and then brought to the landfill. This is a simple process. In the previous process which I told you, there you will have incinerators generating electricity. In the second option which I told you, here incineration is just to reduce the volume of waste, but in the first scenario the heat generated during incineration process is also used for electricity generation. So, as such, if you see, the MBT systems consists of two simple concepts, either first to separate the waste and then treat it, or to treat the waste and then separate them. Now, some type of waste require only biological treatment with basic mechanical separation process before it is being disposed of into the landfill. But these systems, whatever process you are going to put into the MBT, it needs a basic optimization is required based on the output that you are expecting from the process. Now, let us discuss about the different merits and demerits of the MBT process. Now, the merits as such, if you see, the process is designed in a way to reduce the volume of waste, one, to reduce the methane emissions by using the biodegradable fraction into any biological treatment process and recovering it in terms of energy or a compost like output. So, the biological fraction that is going into the landfills will be avoided, and so that it will not undergo degradation in landfill or it will generate any landfill gases. So, by that way you are reducing the methane generation. then they are very easy to build and they are modular in nature. So, since they are modular, the flexibility is also more and it is comparatively a cheaper option. So, you can put it as an economical option. Now, the demerits as such, if you see, it results in the production of bad or low quality compost. The compost that is produced contains a lot of toxic pollutants. The contamination level is high and that is why it is it cannot be used as a soil improver, because this compost like material or compost like output, when it is used, this heavy metal will once again enter into the soil and then it will further decrease the soil health. Also, that is why I told you this can be used potentially as for the reclamation of land. Then the recyclables that are generated at the end of the process are again low quality recyclables, because if you are subjecting mechanical treatment initially, then the quality of recyclables are little maintained. But after biological treatment, if you subject it to the mechanical sorting, the quality of paper, glass, textile and all, it is lost. Because after mechanical biological treatment, if you subject, sometimes there are chances like the glasses break and you will have small pieces which will lead to occupational health. Also, the broken glass, it is difficult for recycling. Likewise, when paper, after it is being subjected to biological treatment, obviously it will become wet. So, it will not have the property to be recycled. The same is the case for textiles. So, if you do it, they say the quality of recyclables that are produced at the end of MBT process is again of low quality, and that becomes one of the limitation of the process. To summarize, at the end of this module, we have discussed about the concept of MBT, what is the purpose of developing or designing this system. Then we discussed about in detail the MBT process, which involves the waste preparation and waste segregation and biological treatment. Now, depending upon the position of biological treatment, I told you it can be called as MBT or BMT. Then we discussed about the various outputs that are being generated from the MBT process. Then I gave you what are the different MBT options that are available throughout the world. Then we discussed about few of the MBT options. Then lastly, I taught you what are the merits and demerits of the MBT process. I am sure this module would have benefited you. Thank you.